get started, we'd like to welcome two-time defending champion Rory McIlroy into the interview room at the RBC Canadian Open. Rory, obviously a different venue here this year at Oakdale, but just an opening comment on being back in Toronto to defend your title.
Yeah, again this week.
All right, we'll take some questions out here. If you have a question, we'll get a microphone to you. We'll start with Sean on the left here.
Hey, Rory. Yesterday's news, I guess how and where were you when you received it, and how did it make you feel?
Yeah, so I got a text message on Monday night, I guess, from Jimmy Dunn saying, hey, can I give you a call in the morning? So I said, sure. Jimmy rang me at about 6:30 yesterday morning. We had a chat, took me through the news, took me through the deal, the structure of the deal, what it meant for us, what it meant for the DP World Tour. So yeah, I learned about it pretty much at the same time everyone else did. And yeah, it was a surprise. I knew there had been discussions going on in the background. I knew that lines of communication had been opened up. I obviously didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did. But I really think that, you know, from what I gathered, the tour felt they were in a real position of strength coming off the back of the DP World winning their legal case in London. It sort of weakened the other side's position, and you know, they went in there, and you know, the way Jimmy described it, you know, Rory, sometimes you got 280 over water and you just got to go for it. And you know, that's what they did. And you know, I think ultimately, when I try to remove myself from the situation and I look at the bigger picture and I look at 10 years down the line, you know, I think ultimately this is going to be, it's going to be good for the game of professional golf. I think it secures it unifies it, and it secures its financial future. So, you know, there's mixed emotions in there as well, as there's going to be. I don't understand all the intricacies of what's going on. It's a very, what's the word? You know, there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of things still to be sort of thrashed out, but at least it means that the litigation goes away, which has been a massive burden for everyone that's involved with the tour and that's playing the tour, and we can start to work toward, you know, some sort of way of unifying the game at the elite level.
Hey, Adam on the left.
Rory, has over the last day with the different meetings and the conversations you've had with players, has your opinion changed at all? Have you sort of started to see where this is all going, and are you excited about this? Are you optimistic about this? Kind of as you project it forward? What do you think?
So I mean, I think the one thing that I think was really misconstrued yesterday was, you know, all the headlines were PGA Tour merges with LIV, and LIV has got nothing to do with this, right? I mean, it's the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and the Public Investment Fund are basically partnering to create a new company. You know, this has gotten, you know, I think that's where I was a little frustrated, because all I've wanted to do and all I've wanted, you know, in the past year from basically this tournament is to protect the future of the PGA Tour and protect the aspirational nature of what the PGA Tour stands for. And I hope that this does that, but, you know, I think with the headlines being merges with LIV, like that's not the, I mean, if you look at the structure of how it's structured down, this new company sits above everything. Jay's the CEO of that, so technically anyone that is involved with LIV now would answer to Jay. So, you know, the PGA Tour have control of everything. And the one thing as well is, you know, whether you like it or not, the PIF are going to keep spending money in golf. At least the PGA Tour now controls how that money is spent. You know, so you know, if you're thinking about you know, one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world, would you rather have them as a partner or an enemy? At the end of the day, money talks, and you'd rather have them as a partner.
given that the DOJ was already looking into the PGA Tour for antitrust violations and all that, how much of an uphill battle do you think this is going to be to push this through going forward now that the two sides have kind of come together and are operating together here?
That's way above my pay grade. I have no idea how the Department of Justice operates. I have not been involved in any of those discussions, and it would be very silly and naive of me to comment on that.
All right, we'll go to Lucas right here on the aisle.
Hi, Rory. I know it's early, but how does an announcement like this impact tournaments like the Canadian Open, for example, one of the storied events on the PGA Tour?
I mean, I feel bad for RBC and the Canadian Open to think about what went on this time last year and then the bombshell that was dropped. I mean, RBC have been one of the biggest supporters of the PGA Tour over the last 10 years. They, this year they're supporting a designated event at Hilton Head. They're sponsoring their National Open. They're pouring tens of millions of dollars into the PGA Tour that the players obviously benefit from. So I feel bad because being such a great partner and having this stuff sort of dropped on you 2 years in a row is very unfair. As to what it looks like going forward, I'd like to say that things don't change. I'd like to think that the Canadian Open keeps on thriving, and just like every other event on the PGA Tour. And I think the PGA Tour are hopefully going to announce their 2024 schedule here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't think that'll. I don't expect that to change.
Another one on the right here.
Rory, Simon Dingley from CBC News. We heard there was a lot of anger in the clubhouse yesterday in the meeting with the commissioner. Do you still have confidence in Jay Monahan as commissioner of the PGA?
Yeah, I do. And look, I've dealt with Jay a lot closer than a lot of those guys have, and from where we were a couple of weeks ago to where we are today, I think the future of the PGA Tour looks brighter as a whole, as an entity. What that looks like for individual players in terms of keeping a tour card and bringing players back into the fold, and then that sacrifices other people. That's where the anger comes from, right? And I understand that, and there still has to be consequences to actions. The people that left the PGA Tour irreparably harmed this tour, started litigation against it. We can't just welcome them back in. That's not going to happen. And I think that was the one thing that Jay was trying to get across yesterday is guys, we're not just going to bring these guys back in and pretend like nothing's happened. That is not going to happen. So I do have confidence in him. I think you ask the people around him that deal with him in a business sense, whether it's the directors of the board of the PGA Tour or the title sponsors that he deals with. I mean, he seems to be a very impressive individual when it comes to business.
Second question. I know you and many other golfers were offered substantial amounts of money to join LIV.
I was never offered any money.
My apologies. Should the golfers who maybe stayed loyal and turned down LIV, should they be made whole financially?
I mean, the simple answer is yes. The complex answer is how does that happen? Mm-hmm. Right? And that's all gray area and up in the air at the minute. But yeah, there's, it's hard for me to not sit up here and feel somewhat like a sacrificial lamb and, feeling like I've put myself out there and this is what happens. Again, removing myself from the situation, I see how this is better for the game of golf. There's no denying that. But for me as an individual, yeah, there's just going to have to be conversations that are had.
Jason and then John on the left.
Rory, you mentioned that this has really nothing to do with LIV Golf, but do you foresee you and other PGA Tour players having to play some sort of team events moving forward into the fall or a series of them?
So I think Yasser is very... So the PGA Tour are already doing their own sort of team thing, right? We're going to do TGL, which is, it's not on a golf course, but it's a team type of event and it's an entertainment product, and that stuff was already starting to happen, but it was very delineated, right? So you had like proper competitive golf like we're playing this week, and you have more entertainment type of golf that you get more into the team atmosphere, and you bring tech into it, and it's a more made for TV type of deal. I would say an element of team golf might still stay. It certainly, in my opinion, and my hope is it won't be under the LIV umbrella. It's something that the PGA Tour will control, the PGA Tour will operate, and it will hopefully look very different to what LIV has been.
Second question, how much of a distraction is this as you try to go and win this tournament 3 times in a row?
Yesterday was tough. I think the shock of it, the surprise of it, I wasn't looking forward to this, to be honest with you. But, once we all get done here and you write your stories and say what I say or quote me or whatever it is, I'm going to go to the range and do some practice and try to get ready for a golf tournament.
John.
Hey, Rory. John Chidley-Hill from the Canadian Press. A lot of fans are upset at this news. The war of words between the PGA Tour and LIV got very heated and fans got very involved. What do you say to fans who are disappointed in this deal?
But it's not LIV. I think that's the thing. I still hate LIV. Like, I hate LIV. Like, I hope it goes away, and I would fully expect that it does. And I think that's where the distinction here is. This is the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and the PIF. Very different from LIV. All I've tried to do is protect what the PGA Tour is and what the PGA Tour stands for, and I think it will continue to do that. So, look, going forward, I hope that there's, there may be a team element, and you're going to see maybe me, maybe whoever else play in some sort of team golf, but I don't think it'll look anything like LIV has looked, and I think that's a good thing.
Just as a follow-up, I mean, you do see why fans are upset, though. I see what you're saying, that it's not LIV, it's the PIF, but nonetheless, during this back and forth over the past year, at one point, Jay Monahan said a deal like this would never happen out of respect for the victims of 9/11. Obviously, you're not responsible for what Mr. Monahan says, but you can see why this has stirred up a lot of emotions in fans, right?
Of course. I said it to Jay yesterday, you've galvanized everyone against something, and that thing that you galvanized everyone against, you've now partnered with. So, yeah, of course I understand. It is hypocritical. It sounds hypocritical. The one thing I would say is, again, whether you like it or not, the PIF and the Saudis want to spend money in the game of golf. It is, they want to do this, and they weren't going to stop. So how can we, the thing for me, and this is one thing that I've always thought about, how can we get that money into the game but use it the right way? And I think that's what this ultimately will do, hopefully. I mean, that's my hope.
Got one in the front right over here.
Just over here. You've said a couple of times now, maybe 2 or 3 times, if I remove myself from it, and kind of trying to forecast a bit further down the line. But is that a hint that there are bits of you that are still uncomfortable with, you're a football watcher, you've seen the reaction to Newcastle United's takeover over the last year and the Saudi kind of moves in soccer and other sports.
Yeah.
Is there a bit of you that's still uncomfortable with just how cozy Saudi Arabia and their money is now in golf? Like, a lot of people would see that it controls a hell of a lot of golf.
I've come to terms with it. I see what happened in other sports. I see what's happened in other businesses. And honestly, I've just resigned myself to the fact that this is what's going to happen. Like, it's very hard to keep up with people that have more money than anyone else. And again, if they want to put that money into the game of golf, then why don't we partner with them and make sure that it's done in the right way? And that's sort of where my head's at.
Got time for a couple more. We got one on the right here, and then we'll go to the back.
Thanks, Rory. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts or feelings or insight as to what this does to the Ryder Cup and the DP World Tour. And I ask that just how it sounds, but also, as you are aware, the European Tour is headed by a Canadian.
I'm very aware of that. Very proud Canadian. I don't think it changes. You know, the ruling in that arbitration court was upheld that the European Tour can uphold the rules and regulations and sanction people for leaving the tour, for harming the tour. And again, I think it's a moot point because all those guys have resigned their membership. If you're not a member of the European Tour, you can't play the Ryder Cup. So to me, it's a moot point.
In the back.
Good morning, Rory. Walter Rigobon, Zoomer Radio in Toronto. I'm going to give you a bit of a break from some of this conversation. We're at a very special place here, the Oakdale Golf and Country Club. It's special in a lot of ways. Special for me. I caddied here when I was a kid. You've now played 9 holes at Oakdale. And tell me your first impressions of the course and how you're going to play 18 differently the next time.
I played it okay today. I made a birdie. I mean, the only way I'd want to play it differently is make an eagle. It's a, there was a couple of greens on that back 9 that were quite severe. So I think there's limited hole locations that you're going to be able to use on some greens. But you have to be very wary of where you put the ball on the greens. You start getting yourself above the hole on some of those greens, it's gonna become very, very tricky.
Got time for 2 more on the left right here.
Rory, welcome to Canada. How are you able to sort of quail a lot of the noise that comes around you? You played great through 3 rounds at the PGA Championship, such a hard course, Memorial in a perfect spot, such a hard course, but anytime you don't win, the perception is like Rory let down, but you're tackling these really difficult layouts and you're putting yourself in a perfect spot. On that note, we have a US Open next week. How familiar on that course? And did you get a chance to talk to Jack yet? Because we picked up on the mic when you walked off 18 at Memorial, he said he wanted to sort of have a sit down.
Yeah. Look, any time that I'm in contention that I don't win, there's no one more disappointed than I am, right? I want to go out there and win golf tournaments. Sunday at Memorial was really tough. It was the conditions got very, very tricky. The greens got incredibly firm. The later off in the day that you teed off, I felt the more at a disadvantage you were. I held a putt on Saturday night on the 18th green to get into the final group. If I had missed that putt, I would have been 5 grips earlier, and I feel like being 5 grips earlier actually would have been a better thing. Just sort of how firm and fast the golf course played as the day went on. So it was tough. I mean, I bogeyed the 2 par 5s on the front 9 with in really good positions. So that wasn't great. But anytime you go through something like that on a Sunday afternoon, you learn from it. And the great thing about golf, and this is hopefully going to be the great thing about golf going forward, is there's always next week. There's always next week to right the wrongs from the week before and try to, learn from those situations and do better the next time you're out there. So, look, I was disappointed that I didn't play better on Sunday, but, I've got another chance this week to get myself in contention in a golf tournament and try to win. Now, talking about LACC, I have not played there yet. I'll first, sort of lay eyes on it next Monday, when I get to LA. I've watched some videos on YouTube. I sort of know the look of the course and the topography a little bit and sort of what to expect, but you don't get a real grasp of it until you're actually out there and your feet are on the ground. So I'm excited. I mean, I've got 4 days of competitive golf to get through here first and trying to win my 3rd Canadian Open, and that's at the forefront of my mind. But obviously with a major next week as well, I'm looking forward to that.
Got time for 1 more on the left.
Just to go back to one more about yesterday, the players' meeting. I think a lot of the reports sort of described some frustrations and just your sense of what was said and sort of the mood of that meeting in any sort of way that it stood out to you. And
yeah, look, it was heated. It was people were surprised. People felt like they were in the dark about all this. Look, most of the gripes come from the guys that are trying to hold on to their cards, and they feel like things have already been taken away from them this year with the designated events and smaller fields and no cuts and weighted FedEx Cup points for the larger events with the stronger field. So they were already feeling somewhat vulnerable, and then whenever this news is brought about, there's only gonna be one reaction to that, and I understand that. And honestly, it's hard for me to relate to those guys because I've never been in that position. I try to empathize with it, but it's hard for me to relate to them fully. But I certainly empathize with their point of view.
All right, Rory, thank you very much for your time, and best of luck this week.
Thank you.